Hi, my name is Dr. Bernard Fragomeni, and I'm the founder of No More Diet. Likely, if you've arrived at this point and downloaded our Transformation Discovery Pyramid, which we'll go over in a few minutes, you're probably on some sort of a mission to find out information about either lifestyle or diet or perhaps nutrition, maybe even a particular condition that you may be suffering from, maybe medicines that you're on that you're hoping to work with your physician and get off of. Could be a myriad of reasons. If you're not already frustrated or confused or overwhelmed, sadly, you probably will be soon. I get you because I was you at one point. By the time I was age 40, I had probably yo-yo dieted 10 or 12 times, probably lost the same 40 or 50 pounds multiple times, if not all those times. But nonetheless, I was 50 pounds overweight. I was on 4 different medications. I didn't sleep well. I had a lot of anxiety about my health. And I was completely overwhelmed and lost and didn't know what to do. That was until I discovered the principles that I teach here at No More Diet. In a few moments, we're going to go through and talk about how you can utilize the Transformation Discovery Pyramid. So if you have not yet printed it out, take a moment, print it out if you can. If you're somewhere where you can't do that, just grab something to write with or take some notes on your phone or tablet, whatever you're viewing this on. And hopefully you'll be able to learn a couple things from us going through this. The main 3 things we want to accomplish with the Transformation Discovery Pyramid is, one, is we want to be able to help you assess your level of preparedness and readiness, and I'll talk about why I think that's important in a moment. 2, there's 3 main areas that we focus on coaching our clients up through moving through our systems. And we call them mindset, skill set, and environment, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But what the idea is as we go through this, you should be able to assess where you have strengths and or weaknesses to work on with that. And then lastly, we would like to be able to put you in a position to know what to do next. Because from our perspective, there's tons of information out there. As I mentioned, you're probably already feeling a little bit of that overwhelm. But the idea is to know how to turn things into actionable processes and how to create transformation, and that's what we're all about here. Also, when we go through and explain the Transformation Discovery Pyramid tool, I think it'll give you a pretty good idea of the way that we work with clients. So let's dive into going through the Transformation Discovery Pyramid. If you look at the left-hand side, you're going to see a header of symptoms. What I want you to think about the symptoms is they are not necessarily disease conditions or disease spectrums. Moreover, what we're talking about is the words and the thoughts and the feelings and the behaviors. And if you want to put a slash mark down, if you have printed it out and write that down, the idea is this is how folks, when we ask them how they're feeling or where they think they are with a particular mindset or condition around their health and well-being, they'll answer and use those types of word sets. So it allows us to kind of plot them on a particular level of the pyramid. And let's just dive right in and start right at the bottom, shall we? So first level, which is the people that are kind of stuck the most and maybe perhaps feeling dejected or feeling kind of beat down. Maybe they've had multiple experiences from a yo-yo dieting standpoint. And they're going to fit into our category or level of pyramid at the bottom that we call complacent or complacency. Those are the folks that have just kind of given up. They've given up on themselves. They've given up on the process of perhaps ever being able to be healthy. Typically, and if you want to write down next to complacent 6 months somewhere in there, most of those folks, if you ask them to identify if they really did feel or believe they needed to do something at some point, they were going to be the types of folks that are going to say, yes, I'll do something at some point, but right now is just not the right time. And I'm going to kind of bide my time and see what happens. So if you identify with yourself there, put a check mark. A lot of people in our country, and as the standard American diet has spread to the rest of the world and standard American conditions and disease states have spread to the rest of the world, it's where a lot of people fit. So you're not alone. We know a lot of folks are there. We have a place for you at No More Diet. You don't need to be quite ready to dive into some sort of a program. And in fact, we think that that's one of the issues that a lot of people have, that where they make a mistake. For instance, when we ask people why they have not succeeded in the past, you'll hear a plethora of things. I lack motivation. I lack willpower. It's just not in my genes. I'm not the type of person that does these types of things. I'm not as bad as the next guy. That's kind of a social mean, self-defining definition, where people will say, hey, compared to other people, I'm not doing that poorly. But the downside is we know right now that 70% of the people out there qualify as being obese in current standards and today's definitions that are out there. So you're not alone if you're there. I've been there, not trying to beat anyone up over it. We know that it's going to take more work and to provide more inertia to get those folks moving, and we spend a tremendous amount of time with those folks in our community, educating them and pushing, getting them to understand the pros of making changes and the cons of not making changes. Secondly, if you move up to the next level, the get ready stage, that tends to be the people that are frustrated and overwhelmed. You might be there right now when you arrived here. The idea with those folks is that if you want to put next to get ready 30 days, you may fall into this category. If you're on a search and destroy mission right now on the internet trying to find out information that you think can be beneficial and help you make a change that you'll be able to stick with, good on you. You're probably within that 30-day range of getting ready to start something. And our idea with all these is to continue to try to move people up through the program and up through the pyramid and coach you up and provide you the support, education, and push that you need to be able to make incremental changes that will be long-term, very transformational in getting you to permanently transition from what we call haphazard lifestyle to more of a health style, to go from just kind of bouncing along through life as a human being and become more of what we define as a well-being. And the idea with all this stuff, when we look at the disease states and chronic conditions of our population, in particular in the folks that are aging, we see a lot of conditions that are really directly tied to lifestyle and diet. And the idea is we want to increase people's lifespan as well. And when we're talking about lifespan, we're talking about having your health, having your vitality through the latter stages of life, so that you're not somebody that's on 10 or 15 medications that we hear about sometimes with folks that can't get up and down a simple set of stairs, that can't maybe pick up a piece of luggage and put it in the overhead bin if they're fortunate enough to be able to travel this great country or throughout the world. So our idea is to stretch these things up and to increase people's vitality and lifespan as well. Let's move on to the hopeful and improving, or what we call kind of the get set stage. If you're at that stage, you're likely somebody that's actually trying to implement some of the things you've been learning, whether it's on your own or through another program. And for those folks, they're starting to get to a point where they're maybe not have been in a state of having permanent change for maybe more than 6 months, but they're on the pathway. And that's good. What we want to know, we want to say to those folks, is that, look, you're on the right path. You got to stay the course. You're likely going to have some setbacks. We're not trying to be negative. We're trying to be realistic here. We do a lot of work along the behavioral stuff that I've already mentioned. We do a lot of work along the confines of the art and science of nutritional psychology. And the idea with a lot of this stuff is we just want to teach you that it's okay to have setbacks. It's okay to let yourself have another opportunity to get through this. And we'll be here to support you. And you got to give yourself a shot so you can get to the last level. And the last level, quite frankly, is the one that I think is the most important. That is the no phase, or the pinnacle of our pyramid. And for those folks, they're role models. They're transformed. They've been doing what they're doing for over 6 months. Let's just take a moment to recap something for you. One, we want to make sure that you've tried to figure out where you fit on what level of the pyramid that you fit, so we can figure out what to do, because everybody comes to us with a different set of circumstances, and we do not have a one size fits all protocol or program with No More Diet. The other thing I want to reiterate is I already talked a little bit about why most people believe they failed in the past. And as we move on to talk about the keys to success, and in particular mindset, I want to kind of hold everyone's feet to the fire a little bit here. Is the actual reasons that we understand that people fail when they embark upon some sort of a lifestyle change type of a program, whatever that behavior is that they might be trying to modify. Is we know the main real reason is they just do not know how to change. So this is very, very key to what we do with clients. But there's some secondary reasons around it that start to lead us down the discussion of some of the key areas that we work in for success, and in particular mindset. And they're really tied more to maybe the reasons why people are doing this. They're maybe doing it for the wrong reasons. And the timing, we talked a little bit about preparedness, but they're jumping in a lot of times when they're not really ready. And those two things can actually sometimes and oftentimes are tightly tied together. So now let's transition and talk about the keys to success. And specifically, I want to talk to you for a few minutes about mindset. So when we're talking about mindset, we are really talking about discovering the whys. So I alluded to this a second ago. So, the whys, although they oftentimes are things like a vacation coming up where you might want to look good in a bathing suit or on the beach, could be a class reunion or a wedding, etc. There's innumerable reasons why people would maybe be doing this, and it's great that it maybe provides at least some short-term motivation and focus. That's what a lot of people need to get some sort of inertia and maybe even some momentum created around making permanent lifestyle changes. But sadly, for most people, that's not enough. And maybe they do accomplish the goal, and when push comes to shove in that time frame or that event has passed, they go right back to the habits, because what they've been doing is they've been following a diet program, and a diet program by nature is just doomed to fail because of the fact that most people go about it the wrong way and feel they're depriving themselves. I mean, look, we don't really care what diet you follow, and that might sound very different from some other programs that you've maybe heard or read about or seen out there. I don't care what diet somebody utilizes. Quite frankly, I'm just happy if they transition off of the standard American diet, which is abysmal, to maybe something that's a little bit more whole foods based, perhaps to something that includes maybe some plant-centric meals from time to time, not side dishes, but I'm saying actual meals, and we teach people about how to do this. And maybe lastly, for certain people with particular chronic conditions and disease states, one of the best things that they can do is do some sort of a modified Mediterranean that really starts to approach a completely plant-based diet. And under full disclosure, I will tell you that is how I eat, because I found for me, it's the way I feel the best, and it's the cleanest way to eat. So let's go back a second into mindset, and let me give you an example of maybe a correct why versus a wrong why. Many people, we have an epidemic right now of type 2 diabetes that's spreading throughout the country. For some kids that are diagnosed with what's supposed to be called adult onset diabetes, the average age right now is 12 and a half years old. So this is something that's very, very critical to the reason that I formed No More Diet. Here's a simple fact. I hear diagnoses of pre or pre-diabetes, or I'm type 2 diabetic, but I don't yet need to take insulin every day, as if that is a win, as if that's a success. And sadly, what I can tell you is this is not to beat people up, but much of the damage that is done by the disease state that we call type 2 diabetes, which it's what it's called, but it couldn't be further from being different than what actual diabetes is. Nonetheless, this lifestyle condition that we call type 2 diabetes, much of the damage that is done to our biological systems is done while you're developing the disease. So it's not you get diagnosed finally with type 2 diabetes and you're so lucky that you get to take insulin that now the damage is being done. No, the damage has been being done over those years that you've been waiting to finally get the diagnosis, as if it's a prize to now be called type 2 diabetic and be happy that you're now taking insulin or some other drug. And I'm being sarcastic, but I'm kind of being pointedly serious, and I hope it's coming through loud and clear. There's a lot of damage that's done. I look at, and a lot of people that study metabolic medicine look at type 2 diabetes as kind of a gateway disease, that once you get to that, you're kind of hitting the tipping point. You've accumulated enough of the metabolic conditions that allow you to now bear the badge of being type 2 diabetic, and we're now opening up the gateway to many neurodegenerative disorders, many cardiovascular diseases, and the list could go on. Enough of me being up on my soapbox, but that's a correct why. A correct why is perhaps preventing a particular disease and or even reversing it. That would be a correct why. What else do we talk about in mindset? We talk about getting over yourself. We talk about giving yourself another chance. We do a lot with behavior modification that's around things like just raising your level of awareness so that you're conscious of the decisions that you're making that contribute to the human condition. So mindset, what we're trying to do is then shift what you currently think about the things that are out there, get you to develop and understand a little bit more about the whys and why you should be concerned about particular things and how it can impact you down the road, and then get you to look at the things that you're presented with a little bit differently. Enough on mindset, let's move on to environment. Environment is really understanding and managing everything that we steep ourselves in on a day-to-day basis. In environment, we obviously got some things that we look into, like the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat. That's easy and obvious. We get into things that are maybe a little bit less obvious, like the company you keep and the people you choose to surround yourself with. We talk a little bit about stress resiliency in environment and how stress can have significant both psychological and physiological effects on our biological systems and the efficiency thereof. So when we get into environment, we also delve into things that you might have seen in your search on the internet about microbiome and the gut-brain connection, which really just starts to scratch the surface, of how that impacts the human condition. We get into talking about epigenetics, and you know, I mentioned before that diseases don't run in families, diets do. Well, diets actually shape the way we have a genetic expression and the way certain conditions are maybe bubbled up to the surface in life. And I'm trying to simplify it, but that is the study of epigenetics, and we do kind of dip into that area so that we can educate you. And again, that gives you an understanding of that you really do have control over your condition, and that it's not really just about your genetic makeup. I'm not saying there aren't certain conditions that aren't predisposed by genetic makeup, because there certainly are. But the fact is, we can turn on and off particular genes and particular protein synthesis and particular disease states by just what we choose to put into our mouth, just what we choose to put into our ears, just what we choose to see with our eyes, etc. Hopefully I've driven home the point there as far as environment. Skill set is really, hey, how do you do what you need to do? It can be something as simple as learning all the different aspects that I spoke about and getting the skills that you need to overcome particular areas. We can do something as simple as teach people how to shop better, teach people how to substitute particular things in recipes that we can maybe put more healthful options into some of those things. It can be teaching somebody how to be a little bit more centered around mindfulness and awareness, as I mentioned when we talked about mindset. So skill set, what I want you to think about is that is going to be all the tools that we give you to accomplish all the things that we're talking about from a teaching standpoint. Remember, the idea of skill set is really to teach you how to make permanent and effective change, or what we call transformation. Remember what I said earlier, many people don't know how to change, and that really is key of what we focus on with our clientele here at No More Diet. Lastly, we want to make sure you're doing it for the right reason, and we want to make sure you're indeed ready. So our idea is to get you prepared, to get you ready, to get you set so that you can know. At the end of the day, we hope everyone becomes a good center of influence, becomes a good role model for the people around them, and that it enhances the community through which you live, or enhances your family around you. Go out and have a great day.